It is very common in games that have a class-based system to only play one class and never play any others. This is often referred to as being a one-trick, and can be looked down upon depending on the game you're playing. In games like Overwatch, one-tricking is often seen as a problem and the sign of a weaker player. But how does being a one-trick affect rating in FF14? Is it worth swapping classes to fit into the meta? And yes, I know in FF14 they're called jobs, but I'm going to call them classes. Let's get into it. In FF14, it is common for classes to get buffs and nerfs, and the power level of these classes swings up and down. For one patch, your main might be meta. The next patch, your main gets nerfed, or a competing class gets buffed, and your main is now under another job. This is often when people will decide if they want to swap jobs, once they see other classes doing better damage. Since FF14's meta is solely focused on DPS, you want to be playing the class that does the most damage. When bosses die faster, there are less mechanics in the fight, meaning less potential of wiping, as well as less damage going out since the boss died earlier, meaning less healing required. A fast boss kill time is always a good thing, but what if you don't want to swap to that better class? What if you love your class, how it plays, how it feels, the overall experience? Maybe you're attached to the lore of the job, or how it fits into your aesthetic. Well, it all comes down to your group and the goals you set together. I would say in 80% of groups, playing whatever job you want as long as it is in the role you joined as is no problem. Most teams in this game just raid for fun and have pretty loose goals in terms of progression. When that is the case, gear and higher item levels will be your determining factor in progression, not so much the class you play. If your group's goal is not to speed kill, or if your group does not take progression super seriously, then it probably doesn't matter what you play. That being said though, when your goal is to be meta, or to take the game more seriously, it is objectively better to be able to multi-class. The most important factor in playing multiple jobs is your own skill level. You might be amazing at one, but not so great at another, even within the same role. Maybe you're a great dancer, you understand your cooldowns, how to hold feathers for burst windows, and the proc priority, but when you move on to Bard, the dot snapshotting, song swapping, and super proc heavy nature is beyond you. This is when playing a non-meta job can actually improve your own performance. I've said it many times on my stream, it is often better to play a weaker class in terms of the meta if you enjoy that class, because if you're motivated to play well and you're having fun, you'll perform better than playing a job you don't enjoy, whether or not it does more DPS. This is often why people who multi-class don't actually play every single job in a role, just the few that they enjoy. For me specifically, I main Warrior and Dark Knight. They are the two tanks I enjoy the most, and I enjoy playing Warrior and Dark Knight way more than I enjoy playing Gunbreaker and Paladin. My co-tank plays Paladin as a main and has swapped to Gunbreaker or Dark Knight depending on what is needed, so even though we don't both play every job in our role, we can cover all tank compositions between the jobs we do main. This is also great because the meta of which job to play can change from boss to boss, and sometimes we want to hollowed ground, other times we want a Warrior and Dark Knight comp to heavily mitigate tank busters and have insane healing. Even if you don't play every single job in your role, it can be a great benefit to a raiding team to play 2 or 3, and being able to swap between fights can be a great asset to progression. With the recent summoner nerfs, we have been seeing more and more black mages pop up on FF logs, and black mages are looking to outperform summoners on certain fights. This brings up the really hard part of multi-classing, and that is melds. Many jobs will have different meld priorities or different skill speed / spell speed tiers they need to function optimally. This is the biggest reason outside of fun that you would stay a one trick. For example, on Dark Knight, Gunbreaker, and Paladin, the meta is to get your skill speed to around 2.40 to 2.43, and then meld crit and direct hit. Then, out of nowhere, Warrior comes in and says, well, I want 2.38, and I meld crit and determination. So when you have a slower GCD and are direct hit melded, you underperform on Warrior. This is why many people in the community want a system called meld plates, which is essentially glamour plates but for your gear's melds. This system would open up the opportunity to multi-class with ease, and allow you to swap melds, skill speed tiers, and stat priorities with the push of a button. Right now, if you main a summoner and are looking to swap to black mage, you have to completely remeld your gear from crit / direct hit to spell speed. And then, if you want to go back to summoner for some fun, your GCD is now omega fast and your entire summoner rotation has changed. I feel like if you are playing one job that has a different meld priority compared to the others, then it is completely understandable why you would stick with that one class for an entire raid tier, or potentially forever. The headache of swapping melds just isn't worth it in most people's eyes. With that being said, it is still worth playing multiple jobs despite having potentially unoptimal melds, especially playing other roles. Understanding how the other roles in your raid operate, what they want, and how they play can make you better at your own main class. This is hugely important when looking to become a great tank. You need to know how healers operate, how they heal you, how they heal the party, and how your HP interacts with their gameplay. When deciding what cooldowns to use for tank busters or long strings of auto attacks, my decision making is often influenced by what heals my healers have available. Do they have lots of cooldowns to burn? Okay, use a home gang. Are we in a phase with heavy AoE damage but I'm still getting auto attacked? I'll use a cooldown to mitigate the heavy tank damage so they can focus more on AoE healing. These are a few examples of how I interact with my healers, but believe me, it goes way beyond just a tank and their healers. I constantly focus on what are my melees doing, what combos are they on, if I turn the boss will it influence their positionals, are my casters out of range, can we move the boss somewhere to get better caster uptime. These are all ideas that flow through my mind because I have played every single role extensively. I know how they work, and I always keep in mind what they want out of me. Multi-classing, even if you don't intend on maining those other classes, is insanely beneficial to your own play. When comparing FF14 to other games such as Overwatch, the idea of one-tricking is largely the same. When playing in casual, unranked games in Overwatch, it doesn't really matter what you play. You might piss off someone who's tryharding in casual, but who really cares? However, when you step into competitive and ranked play, you are expected to play other characters and fill in for what your team needs. This is similar to how seriously your raid team takes progression in FF. If your team doesn't take the game too seriously or just wants to do the best with what they have, then it doesn't really matter what specific class you play. You are essentially playing in the unranked playlist, which isn't a bad thing. The idea of being a casual sometimes gets a bad connotation attached to it, but in reality, there's nothing wrong with being a casual raider and just playing for fun. When you step into a serious team or a group that takes progression in the meta seriously, then you can almost guarantee that having the ability to multi-class and being flexible in what you play will be required. There are obviously levels to this, and not every group who claims to play seriously will enforce your class decision with an iron fist, but you'll probably be expected to not play the worst job of your role. Even in my own team that clears Savage week 1 and Ultimates in a month or less, we have people who play non-meta classes. I mean, we play with a monk main, how cringe is that? I'm kidding. Even in a serious team, there is still lenience in job choice. And at the end of the day, skill in your class matters more than the actual class you are playing. If you want to one-trick, just make sure you're really good at that class. In closing, maining multiple jobs in FF14 is difficult due to melds and materia differences, but if you can do it, then it is very beneficial, not only to yourself, but your entire raid. Never sacrifice your own fun and enjoyment to be meta, unless you have fun by being meta. Some people enjoy multi-classing, some don't. Just make sure your goals line up with your team's goals. Or just pug raid on different jobs. With Shadowbringers raid loot being coffer based, you can still gear up your main class or an alt job while playing a completely different job. If you can multi-class, then I'd say do it. That's all I've got for you today, friends. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with my content, and check out my Patreon if you want to support me further. Follow me on Twitch for live streams, Twitter for tweets, and join my Discord to engage with me directly. All links are down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Peace!